Good morning.
Good morning.
I thought he was really good tonight, and especially like he was good in that first bench stand.
Where did that come from? That was weird. Couldn't even see whose box it came from, though. What are you doing in there, Nanette?
That was not me this time.
It was me. Among the things that I am nerdy about is basketball.
Well, how did that basketball must just get lost in the middle of, oh no, I'm kidding.
Okay, so let's hold off just a minute. Looks like the whole crew is not quite here.
And just so you know, that wasn't intended too personally, because I have an entire garage full of paraphernalia that will show that I'm pretty nerdy myself.
I don't think anybody really doubted that.
Thanks, Peter.
I was curious, but thanks for confirming.
Vicarious interest, that's all.
So we've got, I guess, just while we wait for the rest of the team to get here, I can just describe the agenda for folks. Ooh, which would prompt me to have it open. I swear I had that thing open. Okay, so yeah, pretty short agenda today. Liquor licensing items, some consent agenda items, COVID update, and it's going to be a really quick one. Okay. Morning, Sean. Looks like we can get started here. It is December 14th. This is the last regularly scheduled Board of County Commissioners meeting of the year. We do have one more special meeting scheduled for Friday, but we'll talk about that later. First thing on the agenda is administrative approval of marijuana licenses for Sopa King medicinal wellness products, for different elements of that business: the retail marijuana store, medical marijuana infused products manufacturing, retail marijuana infused products manufacturing, and retail marijuana cultivation, as well as a retail marijuana store, Tri-City Partners LLC. This is administrative. I note that staff recommends approval and that all the conditions of these applications have been met, so they are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone here who wishes to make public comment? If you do, please click raise hand. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Next thing on the agenda is county manager updates. Brian, what do you have for us this morning?
Well, you mentioned it. Just a friendly reminder, special meeting this Friday. December 17th. We had in our notes a 9 a.m. start, and we just wanted to confirm that. I know we had indicated that 8:30 was going to be our standing start time, but 9 o'clock is our start. I just wanted to confirm that with everyone.
I think we did that because I know Sean needed to leave by 11 o'clock. Originally, we had
Yes.
said 10, but I suggested 9 just to give it more time.
Yes. Okay. All right. Just wanted to confirm that. I had a conversation with Sean yesterday about adding an item to the agenda. And now I've lost my note. I think we've titled it Message from the Commissioners on the Friday agenda to give you some time just to comment about the holiday season, et cetera. But just wanted to confirm that with the three of you. It was something that Sean had specifically requested, but I think I think it's not a bad idea to give you an opportunity to be able to thank staff, et cetera. So.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Okay. All right. So that will be on the agenda for Friday. I will have in your hands today the final copy of the Triton study, the fire EMS merger. So I will email that out to the three of you today, Peter as well. So you've got a copy of that. It is complete. Just got that yesterday, I think. So I'll have that in your hands. And then the only thing I have is I'm going to be out of the office December 22nd through the 28th, going down to Scottsdale for Christmas with my wife's family. So just an FYI, I'll be out of the office. And that's all I got.
Okay, thanks. Next is commissioner updates. Who wants to start?
I have one thing I'll put out there. There has been a news story running in Denver Post about our behavioral health crisis, and a super tragic story about a family involving mental health and suicide. And I saw from CCI a letter request for the commissioners to sign came out a few days ago from an organization. And long story short, I'm a board member of JCMH, and one of the issues I had with the letter is it lumped all 17 community behavioral health centers together. And there are 100% some challenges with the way that the state is administering funds and delivering services when it comes to behavioral health. But I think the letter is essentially a bomb throwing exercise against all 17 of the behavioral health centers. And I think a more nuanced and mature approach is what we need. And I've already reached out to Linda Eisenhardt. I'm going to be reaching out to Tracy Kraft-Tharp from Jefferson County. The three of us are the board members on JCMH, and see if we can reach consensus about kind of a different message to send to all the commissioners in the state, maybe encouraging us to take a more thoughtful approach rather than to pile onto that letter. So George and Randy, I'll keep you involved in that conversation as well. And I don't know where it's going to lead, but I just wanted to let you guys know what I was thinking and what I was doing.
Thanks. Yeah, and I presume it's probably been in my inbox and I haven't read it. Have we received that letter also? We should.
Yeah, it came from Jenny. It was sent maybe on Monday or over the weekend or something.
Well, as you describe it, it certainly warrants reading it, and I'm guessing if it's as you described it, and it probably is, and I'm likely to agree. But George, have you read the letter?
I have not. I'm aware that it exists. It's on my to-do list to read it. I did send it to Sarah. This is going to be on my update too. I forwarded it along to Sarah Casano, our Human Services Director, for everyone listening, to hear her thoughts on it. And I know, Peter, you always discourage us from really doing much dialogue during these updates, but what I'll say is that I think if we want to try to speak as a county with one voice on this, we probably need some time to get on the same page. I don't know if that looks like a work session or something.
Yeah, maybe a half hour or something like that, or it could even be less, but whatever. Yeah.
And there's one related thing I wanted to throw out there, and then I think I'm done. I went to a town hall, I think it was last Thursday, and Judy Amable from the legislature, our representative, was involved, and she has her own personal story with behavioral health with a son that has I don't know, schizophrenia, I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure, who's experienced homelessness and incarceration. And she brought up what I thought was a really good point, which is there was a time when our system had mental health beds for people who are in severe crisis, and a lot of that's gone now. And one of the consequences of that is, and I'm sure the sheriff can appreciate this, we end up in the county jail system housing those people and
Right.
Going in and out of and from prison to prison based on what's happening in their lives and whether they're able to stay on their medications and a lot of other technical things that I probably don't fully understand. But that is where I personally think a lot of our energy should be focused in terms of messaging the governor about ways of helping repair the system to be able to serve the people who are the most needy. And I think, like I said, attacking our behavioral health centers, I think they have some part in this for sure. But I would like to see, like I said, a more nuanced and holistic approach and message to the governor that involves how we treat the people who are in the most crisis, largely by putting them in our prisons, which, you know, I personally don't agree with that approach.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's music to my ears. I think that the issue is there were good reasons that institutions themselves went away. You know, the one flew over the cuckoo's nest kind of prison, the other kind, and that were used indiscriminately and abused in the past, and that's why they were done away with. That said, for those who did need help, they provided a place that was dedicated for that purpose in small measure, unfortunately, not done very effectively. How to replace that function so that we really treat the whole person and I mean, we talked about that at the dedication of our clinic. It's really important that we get out there and take care of this issue, and I'm 100% behind anything that we can do to improve it and improve the level of services that we bring to people with all kinds of health, obviously, including mental health. Do a better job of that. So, and it is an all hands on deck. And so what we're really doing is in some measure, I mean, there's certainly, I'm sure, criticisms that can be leveled at, you know, the organizations like JCMH, like all organizations, and but it's a system-wide thing, and it's kind of like pointing at the fireman that doesn't have enough water and blaming the fact that the fire isn't going out on the fireman. We need to put more water on the fire.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Definitely encourage anyone who's listening and is curious. It was a story, it was an investigation published by the Denver Post about community mental health centers that is very interesting. So anyway, thank you, Sean, for bringing that up. Look forward to talking about that in January. Randy, anything from you?
Just a couple of things. I did meet in this last week or week and a half with the staff from Bennett's and Hickenlooper's offices regarding collaborative effort, and also regarding some fundraising on some research work that can be done into improving the efficiency of our transit in the future here, including highway-based transit, as well as, you know, good cost-effective research into the potential for future potential updating the information we have on Advanced Guideway, and also on the same subjects with Amber Blake, who's the new director of transit and rail for CDOT, and David Krutzinger, who came before here. We had a really, really great conversation about a bunch of stuff and set some ideas about moving forward. They're still germinating. I'll be meeting soon with Ernest House to discuss some of our paths forward now that the BGN has completed its stuff on S-Word on Mestahey Mountain. And he's a former commissioner of Indian Affairs in Colorado and a member of the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, and kind of can represent the three of those. And we're going to get together. He's a great guy to talk to. We're going to be kicking around paths forward with some of our other features of the same name. And then the other thing is out of NOCO and transportation, I'll be meeting. And the reason I'm telling you this so far in advance is because it's a scheduling snafu. with the board of Next 100, which is an organization that's bringing youth and diversity into leadership on important issues across the board. And one of those is in equity and diversity. And at NOCO, we've identified, the entire board is unanimously identified, and the larger group, that equity and diversity and management of public lands and making those lands welcoming to all is a really big deal. So as we figure out how to manage those lands, which in some cases is going to mean reducing the amount of access because the lands are already overburdened, it's going to be how do we do that in a way that doesn't just use congestion pricing and price a whole economic strata out of the market of using public lands. And so we're going to be meeting with them to start getting some ideas about how to bring more diverse and thought into developing those management plans, starting with Next 100 and a few other organizations like them. The catch, and the only reason that's a lot of words to describe a little meeting, get to know you meeting, but their board meetings are on Tuesdays, and it looks like we've identified. As I mentioned before, I was going to be in Mexico the last half of January, although I will attend the meeting on, I think, the 18th. Via Zoom from there. But then we have meetings on the 1st and the 15th, and I think I'll be en route back on the 1st. So, they have meetings then too. So we're shooting for the 15th. Probably I'd like to do a lunch break between 1 and 2 o'clock and just bomb out of this meeting on February the 15th straight into the Next 100 meeting and then back into this meeting. So I'm just kind of like throwing that flag out there right now that I need an hour in the middle of the meeting on the 15th to attend a different board meeting.
Point of procedure. So next meeting is Friday. The next scheduled meeting of the board after that is January 11th, and that's your retreat day.
Right, and I'm here for the retreat day.
Okay.
And I'm intentionally stalling my trip until we get that through because that's too important to have in person. And then I'll be leaving around by the time I can get my bags in the car and all that other stuff by around the 13th or something like that.
Well, I don't have much for you. I do want to thank Brian, constituent friend of ours, Tim Wheeler, has long been interested in comparing Clear Creek County's efforts and expenditures and tax rates to Gilpin counties. So he asked for information about how much each department was budgeted to spend and how many employees each department had in 2021. So I want to thank Brian. Brian got him that very concise summary of that information. And he's going to be getting back to us with some observations. So I just thought I'd make you all aware that that conversation is happening. It's always great when people put in some brain energy to help us understand what we're trying to do better. So that is, the other thing is, I know I had told you all I was trying to go to Peru with the Omicron variant. I felt it would be unwise to be in another country when travel could be suspended. So I'm not going to Peru. Instead, I'm staying in country and going to Puerto Rico. Going for 10 days. Dates are a little bit different. Leaving tomorrow morning, but we'll be on for the meeting on the 17th, and back by Christmas and back kind of available to you all by then. There is a meeting, there's a couple of things that I'll be doing just next week from there, but none of that involves you, except Randy, to say that I will be there for that meeting on the 20th about short-term rental taxation policy at the state, because that conversation, which we've talked about here, is it's proceeding in local government groups. I don't know if it's proceeding in the legislature, but.
Right.
And that's it for me.
Yeah, and I should mention that my trip to Mexico is also contingent upon the progression of COVID and, restrictions and good common sense as well. At that moment, we'll see what's happening around January 15th.
Yeah, of course.
I did have one other really quick thing, and it's something we all know about, but I just wanted to mention it. Randy and George and I and the sheriff met at the site of the source of the fire last week, and I got a good education in some things that have been going on in the county that I was unaware of, and I think that we need to follow up on it in some kind of a fashion. And Brian, I'll just circle back with you. Issues related to public safety and code enforcement and all the kinds of things that you would expect.
Agreed. That was I think that's the main reason that Kelly originally requested the meeting, to get us out there, is he brought it up after a previous fire as well, I know, and George brought that up before, and it's a big deal. And without stomping all over people's rights and privacy, we have to have a way, first of all, to respond effectively to genuine complaints that are, credible. And beyond that, we need a way to and I think part of it is that the ground is changing that we're standing on. The fire danger, the woods themselves are more combustible than they were, and they're going to remain that way. And so it's a whole different roll of the dice when you get when you get loose with the installation of and this isn't even the source of the fire in this case, but I thought of myself living in cabins in the past and how we all, you had a little cabin and it was fixed up with a wood stove in it, and it had there was never a code installation inspection that went on in it. And usually we did a pretty good job and all those and that kind of stuff. But the reality is that those are much larger rolls of the dice today. That fire under that wind, if it had just happened to take off under a different circumstance next to someone else's place about 1 mile south, could have ended in a completely different story that, could have burned for a long time and a long ways. And it was just almost lucky that the wind blew so hard that that instead of allowing it to climb the hill to the south, it blew it straight across and then tried to blow it down a hill where there were fewer trees. So, and the fire department the fire agencies behaved extremely well, but even they said the same thing to me. It was the wind and the location together turned out to be a stroke of luck that helped them get a handle on that thing more quickly. But the next one, we might not be that lucky.
The only last thing I'll add is I think I was kind of reflecting on my drive out of there. There's probably some element of child welfare involved in this conversation too.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Sean. And I think, we've had conversations about land use and zoning enforcement topics related to wildfire risk, short-term rental. We've had a couple of fire events that I think our fire chief would like to observe some things to us in public. And I feel like there's some things I'm missing. And so it might be nice for us to find some time to try to pull all those threads into a single work session to talk about what that looks like to do a better job on code enforcement. Anything else for commissioner updates? No? Okay. So the next thing, we do have a consent agenda item here. I'm going to go ahead. Well, before I read it, is anybody asking for anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
No, I read through. I had a question on one, but I read through the packet and had decided I had no question. It was resolved.
The only thing that I see here is that I just kind of I think we should pull it for some conversation, which is resolution 21-107, appointing members to the Clear Creek County Planning Commission. The document reflects something different than what was stated in public. And so I think we should go ahead and have a conversation about that.
Yeah, why a person was added, right?
Yes, exactly. So Peter, I don't know if, I mean, we could just talk about that one for a couple minutes and then throw it back onto the consent agenda perhaps, or should we pull it past the consent agenda? What do you prefer?
I would recommend that you pull it and then you can have a discussion about it and do the rest of the consent agenda separately.
And George, I don't know what agenda you're looking at, but the one I'm looking at has a local liquor licensing item agenda or action session before the consent agenda.
But that's at 10 o'clock, so we can't take that early. We have to take that at 10 o'clock. So you can take the consent agenda out of order.
Okay.
I also can wait till 10 if you'd like.
It doesn't matter to me.
Well, we'll go ahead and do it now. I'm fine with it. Let's just read it and get it done. One more thing out of the way.
Okay, so we're gonna pull item number 5. I will go ahead and read items 1 through 6. Item number 1, consideration of approval of the warrant register. Item number 2, consideration of approval of resolution number 21-104 to approve transfers between funds for the 2021 budget year. Item number 3, consideration of resolution number 21-102 to appoint members to the Clear Creek County Tourism Bureau Board of Directors. Item number 4, consideration of approval of the 6th Amendment to the Independent Contractor Professional Services Agreement between Clear Creek County, Colorado and Correctional Health Partners, LLC. Number 5, consideration of approval of, we're pulling number 5. Number 6, consideration of approval of resolution number 21-108 to appoint members to the Clear Creek County Board of Adjustment.
So I move we approve the consent agenda as presented with the removal of number 5. So we're doing 1 through 4 and number 6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Item number 5, just for the public, we had a resignation from the Planning Commission, or not a resignation, someone announced they weren't seeking reappointment. That was Julie Wizenan, who's been on the Planning Commission for a long time. For starters, want to thank her for her service. I know she put a lot of time and thought into that, and that it also is a role that involves being out there in front of your friends and neighbors expressing your opinion. That's always, just want to thank her for doing that. And so that means we have one more vacancy. We had talked about, we had 4 applicants, which I think the board all kind of liked. 3 vacancies, we now have 4 vacancies. I think the one concern was expressed was that 2 of the applicants lived like in kind of pretty very close to one another. And so we chosen not to appoint Greg Scott of those 4 because he lived very close to Jeff Rickliff's. So now I think what's in front of us is just to say, would we like to appoint Greg Scott at this point, knowing that he's that close to Jeff and also willing. And I think we all kind of felt he was qualified. So I'm just trying to summarize here. So I'll stop there and listen to you guys.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. I know in the past, we've had board members in my neighborhood that live fairly close to each other. I think, 2 people living close to each other, in my opinion, is fine. 3 or 4 is probably a reason to have a conversation about it.
Right, I think so. And I mean, it's 2 from the Idaho Springs area, basically, is what it brings. And they just happen to live close to each other. And on the other hand, they represent very diverse backgrounds. One of them having built his own place and dealt with the process from the customer side. The other one having had a long career in the service side of planning, zoning, and building. And so they bring really diverse strong perspectives, I think, to the discussion. So.
Yeah, as I remember the discussion, I mean, it was almost kind of essentially a coin flip in terms of who we put on the bench for the next spot, and here's the next spot.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, then, by way of making sure the public knows who we're appointing and why. Glad we had that conversation. It seems like at this point, we might be ready to pass resolution number 21-0107 to appoint those 4 individuals to the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that would be Jeff Ricklefs, Tony Williams, Greg Scott, Michael Tansey. You're all 4 appointed. Thank you very much for your service.
I have a quick point, since we have a bit of time. I don't think we, as the Board of County Commissioners, have done the best job in supporting our volunteer boards when it comes to things like onboarding and making sure people understand the bylaws and kind of the role of the job. And now we have 4 brand new people showing up at once. Is this maybe an opportunity for us to be a little more proactive and supportive of our volunteer boards? And I don't know what that would look like, but it just kind of occurs to me that this is a pretty major turnover.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't have something in place is of course the challenge.
I know I can share in past places that I've worked that we have put them through some kind of an orientation so they have an understanding of what their role is, what the job is, you know, what codes are they applying to the cases that are coming to them. I don't know right now what we do here. But that's certainly something that I can check into, because you're right. I mean, there's an extremely important aspect of the role of serving on a board and commission, and there needs to be an understanding of what the role is and parameters of the job, et cetera. So I will reach out to staff and figure out what we've done in the past, if anything, to in terms of some kind of an orientation, so they can sit down, meet with staff, meet with the chair, et cetera. So
yeah, even like understanding of the statutes and, you know, basically what they're responsible for and conflicts of interest. And yeah, I would, sorry to interrupt you, Randy. I think that's really important. And you know, it's something that in my opinion is worth doing right. So if it takes us into Q1 a ways to figure that out, I think that's a good approach.
I think one thing that's what I was just going to say was that one thing that's unique about this particular situation, that there's 4 of them out of a board of 7 coming on.
Yeah.
And it's a majority of the board, and it would be wise, it might be wise. I mean, one thought you could do is kind of like what we do is at least annually, which is it might be a good time to bring them together as a retreat, so that those other, not trying to put things to do on somebody else's list, you know, for all of them, but to have them come together and make a retreat out of one of their meetings or a process that would be informed by staff, including our, you know, county attorney and maybe Brian. So everybody all gets on this kind of the same page and gets a clear understanding of the roles, responsibilities, and guardrails that go with that operation. Just because it's such a big turnover, it's a special case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And thanks for bringing it up, Sean. I know, I guess I would, Brian, tell me, is it safe to assume that some of that is a staff responsibility and that it might already be happening in terms of making sure that folks understand the nuts and the bolts?
Yeah, I would say that is a staff responsibility. I'm sure they've got proper training as they enter their first meeting. I see Beth shaking her head. Maybe Beth can help us understand what we've done in the past.
Yeah, I know they do like a staff orientation where they share the bylaws and kind of the rules and everything. I think they also, and I don't see Fred online right now, but I think they also send them to the new boards commissioners training that Dr. Card. So just as a background, I mean, I think Brian is spot on about checking with Fred on exactly what they do, but I know they do share bylaws, kind of expectations for the people coming on the board, and then as well as the outside training. I think some of them even might go to the APA conferences and stuff, you know, just to learn more along the way.
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage, especially these 4 new members, to look for one of those APA trainings. I know my wife is a planning commissioner in Idaho Springs and learned a lot in 5 or 6 hours.
We can do that for them.
Yeah. So and Sean, I wasn't trying to say that we don't have a role as a board. The thing that I think I'd be interested in is carving out some time for a planning commission, board of county commissioners retreat. I'd like to talk policy with the board members as well. I mean, they recommend policies to us, and we've got a lot of policy stuff we want to talk about. I think having those conversations is important. Okay, excellent.
Looks like
Next
we
thing on the, go ahead.
I said, looks like we got a big break coming up.
I think we do. Next thing on the agenda is at 10 o'clock. It is the local liquor licensing authority. And then just to give everyone, and then we have a 10:30 COVID update. And that is it, except there's one executive session item, Peter, that we're not posted for. It's not written on the agenda. I wasn't thinking about this until we were in the meeting today. We do have a negotiation that is ongoing with the city of Idaho Springs that we may, it looks like we have time and we may want to have an initial conversation about that negotiation. Peter, if you think we can.
My suggestion is that we bring it back at the first regular meeting at the beginning of the year. I already communicated with Idaho Springs on that. It's a little early to have that discussion, I think. But if you want to bring it to the board, we can certainly move forward with it.
We didn't post the executive session either, so.
Yeah, and although you can announce an executive session within 24 hours, usually you'd want a stronger reason. And I think it's a little premature to have that discussion right now, respectfully.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, excellent. Then we are on break. We will be back at 10 o'clock to take up the local liquor licensing authority item. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Looks like everyone is here, so we'll get started. The next thing on the agenda is a public hearing. Well, that's only necessary. We're now sitting as the local liquor licensing authority to consider approval of renewal of the optional premises liquor license for Clear Creek Skiing Corporation. I will call for public comment. If there is none, there's no need for a hearing and it can be approved administratively. Is anyone here who wishes to make comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'm closing public comment. There's no need for a hearing, so I am going to approve this optional premises liquor license for Clear Creek Skiing Corporation doing business as Levelland Ski Area. And now staff recommends approval.
Thank you.
You are welcome. The next thing on the agenda starts at 10:30. It is a COVID-19 update with Dr. Ryan. And seeing that he is not here, let's just start that at 10:30.
George, while we have everybody here though, you had brought up the executive session earlier before we broke. I'm wondering if we actually just bring that with proper notice on Friday, since we have a special meeting. There is another executive session topic that I'd like to bring on Friday as well, which I'll email about. Just a review of my contract, which I'm going to provide to the board members. In light of the fact that we may have two executive session topics, and I don't know that they'll take that much time, should we start at 8:30 after all? Does that work for all the board members?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
I'm seeing 3 nodding heads.
Okay, great. So Beth, if you could just note that for the agenda, we'll start at 8:30 on Friday, and I'll provide the language for the executive sessions in advance.
Thank you,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is our COVID-19 update with Dr. Tim Ryan at 10:30. Till then, we're on break. there, Dr. Ryan.
Morning.
We'll get started just as soon as no one is here. Okay, here we are. It's 10:30. This is our COVID-19 update. Dr. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So let's do the numbers, shall we? Across the country, 50+ million confirmed cases to date. New cases is about 120,000 per day as a 7-day average, although yesterday alone there was over 200,000 cases. Hospitalizations have gone up 15.9% in the last 7 days across the US. Fatalities, we've now lost over 798,000 Americans at a rate of 1,280 per day. 2-week test positivity rate is 8.1%. Contributing factors to the spread are the unvaccinated. Vaccine rate across the country is at 60.5% are fully vaccinated and 71.5% with 1 dose. Here in Colorado, current number of daily cases is 1,778 per day as a 7-day average. 2-week cumulative incident rate is at 508 per 100,000. Hospitalizations, currently over 1,300 people still in the ICU, 84% of which are the unvaccinated. 94% of ICU beds are occupied. 2-week test positivity rate, 6.34% across the states. Contributing factors to the spread in this state, the number of hospitalized unvaccinated people will inform that. Vaccine rate across the state, fully immunized in the 5+ and up, we're at 68.8%. And those with 1 or more doses is at 76%. Here in Clear Creek County, we've had 8 cases over the last week, 26 in the last 2 weeks, for a sum total of 917. Currently have 11 active cases. We're at 45 hospitalizations, 7 fatalities. Our 2-week cumulative incident rate is at 276 per 100,000. 2-week test positivity rate is at 3.75%. Contributing factors to the spread in the county, the unvaccinated. Testing update, testing continues 3 times a week, twice here in Idaho Springs on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and in Georgetown on Mondays. Vaccine update here in the county. Fully immunized, including the 5-year-old and up, we are at a low level of 57.4%. 1+ dose is at 63.9% across the county for 1 dose. Any questions on that?
At some point, I don't know that you need to answer this now, maybe in a future update, but I'd love to see kind of a breakdown by age of vaccination. I'm curious about vaccine uptake, the decisions that families are making with their kids.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. I just sent some data to the state to get that information from them in terms of those individuals 18 and under who are vaccinated.
That was my question too. Remind me, what was the age cutoff we used to be using as the denominator? Was it 18 and above?
Well, it's changed over time. I was 18 and above, and then it was 12 and above, and now it's 5 and above.
Yeah, I would like, I mean, my own personal preference, I would love to see, if it's not too much work, kind of all 3 of those. To George's point, I think the 18 and above is the one from a public health perspective that probably concerns me the most, although I don't necessarily have a study to throw out there to justify that right now.
Okay, yeah, we'll see what the state comes back with. As far as Omicron is concerned, it is in 25 of 50 states as we speak. That's a 6-fold, 7-fold in the last week alone. So it's currently estimated it will become probably the dominant variant here in the next several weeks across the United States, although many states are still battling the Delta variant. 40 states of the 50 are currently experiencing increases in cases. One state in particular I'm keeping an eye on is Texas, as tens of millions of people will be flowing into this state significant number from Texas. So.
Okay. What are you seeing at the vaccine clinic? I know I had heard reports, I think last week we discussed a little bit, just that a lot of volume at the vaccine clinics. Is that continuing?
Yeah, we've been experiencing about 100 or so individuals each week, predominantly in the morning and half an hour before we're supposed to be done. So hopefully that continues. We've reached out to EMS to help support us a little bit in that afternoon time frame when 40 people show up half an hour before we're done. So just as a little bit of reinforcements.
That's good. I see we're still below both the state and national trend.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to have clinics each Wednesday through the foreseeable future here at the new health clinic.
Yeah, and I've started to take our own local numbers with a grain of salt. We've seen 2 significant revisions to our numbers just due to data. The state saying, oh, hey, well, these people are actually on this side of the line. And our population is just so small that, a really small number of people being misallocated to Jeffco, for example, can swing our percentages a lot.
Right. It's complicated by the fact that we don't have direct access to the entire data set of individuals who are vaccinated, the way that the system is set up across the state. So it's relying on me sending data to the state and the state coming back and saying, this is what we have based on that data you sent me. So it's a bit antiquated. It really was not intended for this purpose. It was merely to track any one individual and their vaccine history over time. It was not meant for what we're trying to use it for now. So I'm hopeful that that conversation boils up at some point to say, how can we improve the system that we have so that we're not in this situation again in the future?
Well, it would be good information to actually have to guide our local efforts in health policy. And I agree, the whole thing about the Evergreen, the 80439 and 80437 zip codes, we brought up a year ago, that's as soon as the vaccine started, that's going to be a challenge because it's really easy for the statewide officials to start looking at those zip codes and trying to make assumptions. And, I'm doubting they're getting into GIS databases to see where somebody's home address is located and relative to county lines. And so I'm sure that in a place like Clear Creek, we're anecdotal, as Sean said. We've said that, use that, almost anything in Clear Creek County multiplied times small percentages is going to be an anecdotal number. It can vary a lot. So anyway, I agree. But it's just something to keep an eye on. It does stay consistently lower for whatever reasons. And it's good to know that you're having traffic at the clinic.
Absolutely.
I have a question on Omicron, however you say the new variant. I know that it's very early on and there isn't a lot of data yet, but I saw it was noteworthy that the first person in the UK, the first fatality assigned to Omicron happened, and it's been around for weeks. And I've seen in some places that people are saying the combination of more transmissibility and potentially lower incidence of severe illness, hospitalization, and death. I mean, it could be a good thing. I mean, it could be of a variant that's coming in that's going to outcompete Delta and kind of be one more step toward transitioning from pandemic to endemic. What are you hearing about that, Dr. Ryan?
Absolutely. It's a good point, Sean. One thing that we look at in looking at the data is, just as an example, in South Africa, for instance, what population did it spread in and what was the majority of that population? Unfortunately, in South Africa, it was in young individuals, 18 to 25 or 30 years of age. So it's unfortunately, it takes time as it moves to different countries and impacts different populations in terms of age and demographics and all sorts of things. It's very difficult. It is possible, as you state, that it becomes less severe. It's more like a cold, which is incredibly transmissible, but isn't fatal. So we really don't know. Nobody worth their grain of salt is speculating at this point until we get some more data, and data relevant to the United States, for instance, right? In Washington State, it's now spreading like wildfire. We do know it is more transmissible, but it's going to take several weeks for us to learn, is it more severe in terms of hospitalizations or fatalities? That remains to be seen. I hope that it becomes less severe or a less severe variant, and we can deal with that sort of thing. A cold-like or flu-like, we know that as a globe how to deal with those sorts of things. So time will tell is really the short answer.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I saw that observation too, that people were saying the UK's demographics were a lot more similar to ours than South Africa. So whatever we're seeing over there, we should potentially be paying more attention to than what we're seeing in South Africa.
Absolutely. It's why, and as I stated earlier, I'm not only looking at Clark County in the state of Colorado, I'm looking at other county or other states that will have an impact on us potentially moving forward, right? And what's going on more globally. You can't have blinders on in a pandemic. You need to see the entire picture to really get a sense of what's going on.
Masks are good, but eyes wide open.
Exactly.
Thanks, Sean. That was the other question I had on my list today as well. And you said, Dr. Ryan, you said you think it'll be a matter of weeks until we think we understand the severity of this virus in terms of, its danger to a person who becomes infected.
Right. It's a matter of it infecting enough people in this country for us to draw. We're no longer drawing anecdotal conclusions. We're drawing conclusions based on tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of cases in this country. Whether that takes 2 weeks or 4 weeks to transpire, and then there's another week or two after that where if someone is severe, they may end up in the hospital. It's only then we're going to really get a sense of the true nature of Omicron.
Okay, excellent. Anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments?
Not for me.
All right, then. Thank you, Dr. Ryan, for sharing this information. And we are adjourned. Our next scheduled meeting is it's our last scheduled meeting of the year, is for Friday the 17th at 8:30.
Thank you.